After Google I/O 2017, Android architecture components have created a lot of buzz in the developer community. In this project, we will learn hands-on about Android architecture component with note-taking app use case. I'm creating a new exercise folder and I'll place my project in this exercise folder. I'm creating an empty project, and this episode is fully hands-on episode for Android architecture components. So basically, Android architecture components comes with 3 tools for persisting data and working with the lifecycle and the architecture. So room, live data, and view model is the concept that we will learn in this episode. So in this link, you will be able to find all the guide related to Android architecture components. I'll add the link to the description and the dependencies in the description too. While this episode is targeting intermediate developers, and I'm pretty much sure even a beginner will be able to understand what I'm trying to express in this video. And here, we have discussed about live data and architecture, and we have talked about too much of high level words. Imagine if we want to write an SQLite helper class. It takes a lot of boilerplate code. To eliminate that, Google have come up with Room. Room is an ORM similar to Sugar or any other ORM library solution. It is a wrapper class for our SQL. So let's create our database package for all our room related work. So here in this package, we'll create all the room related work, and let's create another package called add note for all the notes related or adding the notes purpose. So let's refactor this list of notes into notes list or notes list, or note items is suitable. Let's create a class, a model class. It's for adding the note. And so the model class is nothing but a plain old Java object, which is a POJO class with 3 input, which is an note ID and a note title and a note description. And note ID is auto generated primary key from room. So once we add a constructor on getters method, I'll show how to add a primary key in this same setup of model class. Okay, so now let's create a constructor with all the 3 variables. Yes, and getter and setter methods. Yes, now add the @annotation entity to tell room to use the current class as a database table, and the primary key annotation will serve as a primary key for the table. Here we use auto generate to generate the ID on automatically by the room's ability. All right, so next create a note model DAO. So the DAO is a data access object. So this class will be used to define all the queries we will perform on our database. Usually this is not a class. This has to be an interface which takes all the queries. We need to annotate this class with @DAO symbol, just like shown in the line number 12, and then all our queries. So let's instantiate our live data here in this class and our query. The query is select all the data from the note model. If you see that the query is inside the quote, which is saying that the command is a string. Room has an ability to say if we miss out anything in terms of spellings or something. In the compile time, it will tell us there is an error. And yeah, that's it about room. And now in this data access object, we are writing all our queries. So this query is for inserting a note into the database. So we need to say conflict equals replace, which is an on conflict strategy dot replace method. And at delete, we have to delete the model from the note model. So instead of class, let's make it as interface. Now we have our note model DAO ready. We need a database class. So the database class will create an instance. This class needs to be an abstract class. If it is not an abstract class, while you create a class in Android Studio, it will ask whether it is an abstract class or not. You can choose it to be an abstract there, or you can add the abstract keyword after you created the class. Since I haven't chosen that, I will just add the abstract keyword later. Now let's extend it to room database. We can add abstract now. Yeah. And now let's create a database instance, which is this a class name Note database, and that is the instance. And let's create a constructor, not a constructor, or a factory method for getting all the database. So here it takes a context as a parameter, and it checks for the instance whether it is a null instance or not. And then if it is null, we will create a room database builder, and we'll pass the get application context and the actual class and a database name, which is notesdb. So now we have created our database by saying .build. Yes. So let's return the instance here. Now we need to return or we need to destroy the instance. So let's create a static void destroy instance method and assign the instance to a null reference. That's it. Now we need one more abstract method, which is a public abstract note model DAO, and so let's call this as item and notes model here, or note item and notes model. Now our database class is also ready. So basically all our class is completely ready for working with our. So let's refactor main activity into note activity and place the note activity inside note items. So here let's set up our UI. So let's go to activity.main.xml. So this is our UI. So what I'll do is so let's create one more content frame to add all the content. I'll call it as content main, where this is going to be our content inside the main layout. So the content is going to be a recycler view within a relative layout container. Then add this content main, include this in the activity main as shown like this. Like, let's remove all this constraint layout code and text view, and add an app bar layout and a toolbar, and then include a floating action button below the content main. So everything wrapped up with a coordinator layout. So now we are gonna take care of NoteActivity. Here we have a private recycler view. So recycler view is from another dependency. It is not a built-in class. We need to add a library called design support library. After Gradle build running completed, it'll show a couple of errors. We need to add couple of themes that I have used in this layout. So let's go to values and styles.xml and add the themes. So these are the themes that I am supposed to add it. Now let's import the recycler view class and create an instance to it, and import the R package directory and let's add some value to this, say 16, and let's remove this ID. So we need it, but we don't have an ID icon yet. We will add it in the later part of the episode. Now let's import the R. If it is not importing, we can rebuild. And DAO says some error, insert delete query update. So we can go to, so Room is so pretty friendly. So we have forgot an query to add here. So Room is just saying, hey, just add the query, and the query is now being added. So let me change node model, and then where ID equals note ID. So note ID is not the same key that we have used in our model, so we cannot use it in our query. Let's build and check. So it says a typo, missing database note ID. So in our note model we have used ID, so we shall use ID, and we need to use a colon before it, otherwise it will not accept it as an ID. So we need to add an ID in front, colon in front of this ID, so then it assumes the ID is the ID. So now we are good to go. So we have created our recycler view. We need to create an adapter for it. So let's create a class called Note Recycler View or Note Adapter. Simply extends to recycler view dot adapter angled bracket view holder note adapter dot note view holder. I'm using Android Studio to do work for me. I have not created the note view holder class on my own. I have typed the string and Android Studio created it for me. And I'm extending the note view holder to recycler view holder. And here I need to create a layout file before I go and create a class. So the layout file, I'll call it as note item, and let's remove all the code in it and add the relative layout container with 2 text fields. And we can do a little bit of customization with the title and how it looks. So I'll just make it as note description and note title, the IDs, and instead of a text size 25 in title, I'll make it as 15 SP and 25 SP in the note description. And I'll make the note title a little bold, so use normal typeface and style as bold, and here also text style as italic. So we have our layout ready for rocking. So here inside the note view holder, create two text views and call it as NoteTitle, and another one is note description. So we can now map the XML views to the adapter Java view by calling view dot find view by ID and the actual ID. So we need to copy and paste it. We need to import the R file too, and then description and description. Okay, our view holder is ready. Now we need some more data before we construct a constructor of note adapter. So list of note model, and I'll call it as note list. So this is not an episode for naming convention. You can call it as a capital note list just for your understanding, and that is not a standard practice. You can actually follow any naming convention for this video for your benefit. Once you comprehend the Android architecture components, you can follow all the standards that you usually follow. After a constructor with an on-click listener, we need to implement all the methods. Now in note view holder, let's inflate the note item row layout. New note view holder layout inflator dot from parent dot get context dot inflate the layout ID, which is note item, and the parent, and false. Yes. Okay, now we have our note view holder ready. And now in get item count, let's return the size of the note list. And in view bind on bind view holder, let's bind all the data to our text view, like shown here. Let's get the note model according to the note list position, and in NoteTitle dot set text note model dot get note title. So here note description, get note description. Yes, so we need to set a tag for the note model object, and we have to set an on-click listener to our item view holder, which is on long click listener actually, and that's it. Our adapter is completely ready after this method. Public add or public insert, what should we call it? Let's call it as add note, and let's pass list of note model, and let's call it as note list. And here this dot note list actually, let's change it to the capital N. Yeah, this dot note list equals note list. After calling notify dataset changed, our note adapter is completely ready. Now it's our time to write our view model. So the note list view model extends Android view model from the Android architecture component class or the dependency. So here, let's make it private final live data and list of note model, and let's import the list item. I'm calling the capital N list, and so there might have not been initialized, so we can initialize that in the later part of this video. Now we need to initialize our database. Now we need to have a constructor with application. Now here node database equals node database dot get database, this dot get application, not just a context, it's just get application, and after that node list equals node database dot note item and model get all nodes. We are adding all the nodes to our note list of live data, and now public live data note list of note model, and here get note list. Yeah. So after our note list, we have to call a delete note list method, and we have to pass a note model and new dot delete. So delete should happen in the background, so I will write a plain async task instead of using any fancy classes or fancy libraries. Let's utilize async task to execute this in background. So I'll write the delete async task in a new inner class, and then I'll extend the class to async task and note model as the first parameter with followed by two void parameters, and I'm implementing do in background method, and let's initialize the database to have a reference to delete the task. Delete the database or a note model, and then here a constructor with a node database as a parameter. Here we are just assigning the node database to the constructor parameter. So now db dot or node database dot item and notes model dot delete node models, and pass the 0th param, and now we are deleting the database. So this is the complete notes list view. So let's complete our note activity. So let's instantiate our list view model as a view model, and we will have to instantiate our adapter, which is note adapter, and I'll call it as M adapter. And let's take a reference of our floating action button, and I'll call it as fab or note to be precise, and then find view by id r.id.fab, and then note dot set on click listener. Yeah, on click listener, and pass a view component to get an auto generated on click method, and then we are starting our activity with a new intent passing to it to an activity which is not yet created. I'll call this activity as add note activity. So let's complete our note list activity first, and then we'll take care of the add note activity. Let's find the recycler view, and then let's initialize our adapter, note adapter. Let's pass the note model to it with context. So we need to implement our view since we are passing on click listener, otherwise this reference will not take it as a long click listener. And after this we need to set our layout manager to our recycler view, which is a simple linear layout, and we are setting our adapter to M adapter, and we are instantiating our view model with view model provider dot provider of, actually providers of our view model class, which is dot, or in the bracket we can pass our note list view model. Yes, and we're instantiating our view model, and here we can say view model dot get note list and observe note list note activity dot this and new observable. Here whenever there is a recreating of activity, we can manage the life cycle with this observe method, and we can add the note models also, and we can delete the note models also, and we can keep a reference of and all the activity happening in the application. Now on long click listener we have note model, and we can delete it by the tag view dot get tag, and let's delete when user clicks on the item for a long time. Yes, and let's call which note model got deleted by its title. Let's do some UI says deleted. Alright, now let's create add note activity. Create a class, or copy that and go and create a new empty activity. Call that as add note activity. Let's import our and in add note activity we need to create a content add layout, and here we need to add two fields, which is input fields, where user will be able to enter his note title and the actual note. Let's add this content to the add note layout. Let's include it, and with the toolbar, like usual stuff that we do in Android. And then we can have scroll bars if you are will to show a small scroll bar if you haven't too much of text. Otherwise you can remove it. You can have a limit for 250 characters and so on. So that's up to you. So now we have our add note activity. So just instead of class in the, we have to make it as this. That's the error. So now after this we need view model of this add note activity. So let's write add note view model. So extend it to Android architecture components Android view model, and then exactly like how we did earlier, we will instantiate the database, and then we will write a constructor with application as a parameter, and then we will initialize our database, and we will create an void method to add the note, which takes the note model and which adds it into the database. So I'll create another async task to add note to the database in background. So if you remember, we used to do all this circus in our SQLite, but this is more convenient. This is more comprehensive than the old SQLite helper. So now instead of execute, let's add async task and note model. Let's declare a database, and let's assign a database to the add async constructor, and then let's add the database in background to a database. So find the right method. It is insert. So it is insert, not so go to database if you want, if you have any doubts. So okay, where do I find which is the method? So I'm going into the node database class, node database. Here and go to note model DAO class. It's insert note. I was trying to figure that out. Yeah, note model and 0th parameter, and it is execute, not execure. Our add note view model is also ready with async task, and the code looks functionally great. Let's add our add note activity. Let's create 2 edit text. So you can make it as private if you want, or you can leave it just like that. And your view model class, which is add note view model and view model, and copy the private access specifiers. That's it. Then we are good to continue in our on create. So let's set up a small toolbar that we have it in our activity underscore add underscore note layout. So I'm just setting up the toolbar, so that set support toolbar. Okay, so the toolbar that I have imported is the oldest toolbar. We need to import from the support library. I'm just removing it, that I'm removing and remove. Yeah, imported from support library. Now here I need to set the XML to the Java reference. I'm finding the view by ID and the reference. Now a small floating point action to say add it to the database and finish. Yeah, set on click listener, new on click listener. Yes. Now if text title.get text equals null, or which is logical operator, description.get text equals null, then let's toast an error message, a little friendly error message. Let's say, hey, hi there, you missed something. Okay, Now let's add this to the database. Add note view model dot add note. So let's construct a new note model with title dot get text dot toString and description dot get text dot toString. So oh yeah, the constructor of note model is having ID. Let's delete that because since we don't need it, just NoteTitle and note description is enough. All right, let's switch back to add NoteActivity, and after this we need to finish the activity after user presses the button. Now we need to add one more behavior component inside the content add, otherwise that NoteTitle will overlay under the app bar. So yes, so this will help us to have a visible space of our title entry. So now we have a complete working Android architecture component based a note-taking app. This is so cool. I'm learning the stuff, or you are learning the stuff, my dear subscriber. Yes, let's add one more and delete it, and let's see how everything works. Yes, it got just deleted. As practice make man perfect, these kind of another set of Android architecture components videos will make you all perfect. Stay tuned and hit subscribe button